the warning alarms screamed through the bridge of the Therion flagship Defiant Dawn. Commander Vex gripped the edge of his command console as another explosion rocked the vessel. Red emergency lights painted everything in crimson shadows. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to burn with weapons fire and dying ships. Shield integrity at 18%, his tactical officer reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. The young Therion female had seen too much death in these past 3 cycles to show fear anymore. They all had. Vex's clawed hand traced across the holographic display, watching his fleet's position shift and fade. 43 ships remained. Only 43, from a coalition armada that once numbered over 400 strong vessels. 7 worlds had fallen to the Kreshna swarm. 7 entire civilizations consumed and converted into biomass for the enemy's endless hunger. The Calric system was their last stand. There was nowhere left to run. Swarm dreadnoughts closing on the civilian transports, another officer called out. Section 7, Quadrant 12. Vex felt his chest tighten. Thousands of families, children, elders who had survived this long only to be trapped now. The evacuation ships were slow, vulnerable. His warships were too damaged, too few to protect them all. All remaining vessels converge on Section 7, he commanded. His voice carried the weight of someone who knew he was ordering his people to their deaths. We hold them there. High Coordinator Mira's face appeared on his communication screen. The Selnath leader looked exhausted. Her usually vibrant skin patterns faded to dull gray. Her species valued hope and beauty above all things. Watching her lose both had been the hardest part of this war. Vex, she said quietly. The Council agrees. It is time. He nodded slowly. They had discussed this possibility many times in the dark hours between battles. When defeat became certain, when no hope remained, they would send one final message into the void. Not a call for help. They knew they were alone in this region of space. No, this would be a testament. Proof that their civilizations had existed, had fought, had mattered. I will compose it now, Mira continued. Something for the universe to remember us by. Another impact sent Vex stumbling. Sparks erupted from a power conduit overhead. His ship was dying beneath him, slowly torn apart by the Kreshna's organic weapons. The enemy's bioships swarmed like insects, relentless and countless. Through the viewport, he watched 3 of his destroyers position themselves between the civilian transports and the approaching Kreshna dreadnoughts. Beautiful, terrible ships of chitin and flesh, massive beyond reason. Each one was a floating ecosystem of death, grown rather than built. The destroyers fired everything they had. Plasma lances cut through space, striking the lead dreadnought's armor. For a moment, Vex dared to hope. But the creature ship barely slowed. Its return fire was devastating. Acid projectiles, living missiles, beams of concentrated bioenergy. Within seconds, all 3 destroyers were gone. Message ready for transmission, Mira announced. Her voice had taken on a ceremonial quality. Broadcasting on all frequencies, all known languages, all mathematical sequences. Vex listened as her words echoed across the communication channels. To whoever finds this message, we are the Therion Selnath Coalition. We existed. We built cities of light and composed symphonies that made the stars weep. We laughed, we loved, we reached for the heavens together. We fought against the darkness that sought to devour us, and though we fall with honor. Remember us. Remember that we stood here in the Calric system and we did not surrender. We did not beg. We fought for every moment, every life until the very end. This is our testament. This is our legacy. The message repeated, broadcasting outward into the endless dark of space. A final defiant shout into the void. Vex returned his attention to the tactical display. 8 ships left now. The Kreshna were reforming for their final assault. This was it, the end of everything his people had built over thousands of years. All ships, he said, his voice carrying to every remaining vessel in his shattered fleet. It has been my greatest honor to serve beside you. Today Commander! His sensor officer's voice cut through, sharp with confusion. Spatial distortions detected. Sector 9. Vex frowned. The Kreshna bringing in more dreadnoughts. Negative, sir. The readings are... I have never seen anything like this. The fabric of space itself is tearing. Every eye on the bridge turned to the main viewport. Space had begun to shimmer, to fold in on itself in ways that defied their understanding of physics. Colors that should not exist rippled across the void. Reality seemed to scream. Then she appeared. A ship emerged from the impossible wound in space. Massive, angular, brutal in her design. Nothing like the smooth organic curves of Kreshna bioships or the elegant lines of coalition vessels. This ship was all hard edges and purpose, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop a planet. Weapons bristled from every surface. Strange symbols marked her hull in white paint. What is that? Mira's voice whispered across the communication line. Veksh had no answer. In all his years of military service, in all the star charts and intelligence reports, he had never seen a vessel like this. The ship was enormous, easily matching the largest Kreshna dreadnoughts in size. But where the enemy ships looked grown and alive, this newcomer looked built, forged, made by hands and tools and deliberate engineering. They are powering weapons, his tactical officer reported, her voice trembling. All weapons. Energy signatures are. Commander, they are targeting the Kreshna fleet. Wait, Veksh said. They are helping us? Before anyone could answer, the mysterious ship opened fire. The weapons were unlike anything in known space. No plasma, no energy beams, no bioweapons. Instead, solid projectiles launched at impossible speeds, crossing the distance to the Kreshna dreadnoughts in heartbeats. When they hit, the impact was devastating. Armor that had shrugged off coalition weapons shattered like glass. Entire sections of the bioships exploded into clouds of frozen organic matter. The Kreshna swarm, which had never shown fear, which had never retreated, suddenly found themselves facing something they did not understand, something that hurt them. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. From the unknown vessel, static filled the bridge, then a voice. It was speaking Therian language badly, with strange pronunciation and awkward grammar. But it was unmistakably attempting communication. Coalition ships, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth colonial ship Indomitable. We have been monitoring your situation. We are here to help. Please advise status of civilian vessels and we will provide cover. Veksh stared at the communication panel, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. United Earth? Humans? He had never heard of such a species, such a nation, such a ship. The bridge remained silent, every crew member frozen in shock. Outside, the human battleship continued her assault, moving with deadly purpose to position herself between the coalition's civilian transports and the Kreshna fleet. High Coordinator Mira's voice came through, barely a whisper. No help was expected. Yet they came. Veksh finished, watching as the human ship's guns tore another Kreshna dreadnought apart. The battle was far from over. But for the first time in 3 long cycles of war, Commander Veksh felt something he thought he had lost forever. Hope. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of the Indomitable's bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Her uniform was worn and faded from 20 years in deep space, but her posture remained rigid and commanding. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, calling out target solutions and damage reports. Main batteries firing, Lieutenant Marcus Webb announced. Direct hit on enemy Dreadnought 3. Hull breach confirmed. Sarah watched the Kreshna bioship shudder and break apart under the impact of tungsten steel penetrators, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The enemy had never encountered kinetic weapons like these. Their organic armor, designed to absorb energy weapons and regenerate, simply shattered when tons of metal slammed through it at relativistic velocities. Rotate batteries 4 through 7 to target the swarm ships harassing the civilian convoy, she ordered. Navigation. Bring us another 15 degrees to port. I want the Indomitable between those transports and anything that wants to hurt them. Captain, we are receiving multiple hails from the coalition fleet, Marcus reported. They are trying to establish proper communication protocols. Tell them we can talk after everyone is not dying, Sarah replied. Send our tactical data stream. Show them where we are going to shoot so they do not fly into our firing lines. The Indomitable was a deep space survey vessel, built to spend decades away from Earth exploring the unknown regions beyond human territory. She was heavily armed because the unknown was dangerous. Sarah's crew of 312 had been on patrol for almost 20 years now, charting systems and searching for habitable worlds. 6 weeks ago, they had detected something unusual. Radio transmissions, then weapons fire, then desperate final broadcasts. A civilization at war, dying in the dark, crying out to a universe they thought would not hear them. Earth Command was months away by faster-than-light travel. By the time Sarah had reported the situation and received orders back, everyone here would have been dead, so she had made a decision that might end her career. She had brought her ship, her crew into a war that was not theirs to fight. The crew had voted to support her. Every single person had agreed. "Enemy vessels attempting to swarm us," the tactical officer called out. 70+ smaller bioships closing fast. "Point defense systems to automatic," Sarah commanded. "Show them why we do not like things getting close to us." The Indomitable's hull erupted with weapons fire. Hundreds of smaller guns designed to shoot down missiles and debris tracked the incoming Kreshna swarm ships with computer-guided precision. The smaller bioships were fast and maneuverable, but they had never faced this volume of fire. They died by the dozens, turned into clouds of frozen meat and shattered chitin. "Captain, we are being hailed directly by the Coalition flagship," Marcus said. "The commander sounds urgent. Put him through." The main screen flickered and a face appeared. The alien was clearly reptilian in nature, with scales that shimmered between blue and green, and eyes that held intelligence and exhaustion in equal measure. He wore what looked like a military uniform, torn and burned in places. "Unknown vessel, I am Commander Vex of the Therian Defense Fleet," the alien said in his own language. The Indomitable's computer translated in real time, the result of weeks spent listening to intercepted broadcasts and building a linguistic database. "I do not know who you are or where you came from, but you have entered a war zone without understanding our enemy. The Kreshna do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They will destroy you as they have destroyed so many others." Sarah met his eyes through the screen. "Commander Vex, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth colonial ship Indomitable. We have been observing this conflict for 6 weeks. We understand your enemy well enough. They are bullies who have never been punched back hard enough to make them think twice." Vex's expression shifted, something like surprise crossing his features. "You have been watching for 6 weeks? Then you know we are losing. Why would you come here?" "Because you needed help," Sarah said simply, "and we were close enough to provide it." "But your government, your people, they approved this intervention?" Sarah hesitated only a moment. "I will deal with that later. Right now, those civilian ships need to get to safety, and we need to push these Kreshna bastards back far enough to make them reconsider their life choices." A sound came through the transmission, something like a laugh mixed with a bark. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain Chen." "Both usually," Sarah admitted. "Commander, I need you to pull your remaining warships back to the civilian convoy. Form a defensive sphere around them. My ship will advance and draw the Kreshna's main attention. Once they commit to attacking us, you move the convoy toward the inner system. We will cover your retreat. You want to use your ship as bait?" Vex looked horrified. "Captain, there are over 200 Kreshna vessels out there. They will overwhelm you." "They are welcome to try," Sarah said. "The Indomitable has very thick skin." Before Vex could respond, another massive explosion lit up space. One of the Kreshna dreadnoughts had broken through the Coalition line and was bearing down on the Indomitable directly. The bioship was enormous, larger than Sarah's battleship, covered in pulsing organic armor and growing weapons that looked like tumors made of murder. "All forward batteries. Target that dreadnought," Sarah ordered. "Fire everything." The Indomitable had 8 main railguns mounted in her forward section, each one capable of launching projectiles massing several tons at tremendous velocity. All 8 fired simultaneously. The recoil was strong enough to slow the battleship's forward momentum. The Kreshna dreadnought tried to evade, its organic thrusters pushing the massive bioship sideways. It was not nearly fast enough. 6 of the 8 rounds hit dead center, punching through the creature's armor and out the other side. The dreadnought convulsed, its internal organs or systems or whatever kept it alive rupturing from the catastrophic damage. Within seconds, the massive ship was tumbling dead through space. Sarah heard gasps from the open communication line. Commander Vex was staring at something off-screen, presumably his own tactical displays showing what the human ship had just done. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "what kind of weapons are those?" "Old-fashioned ones," Sarah replied. "We throw heavy things very fast. Turns out that works pretty well against most targets." "The Kreshna have never encountered kinetic weapons," Vex said, his voice filling with something that might have been hope. "Their armor is designed to absorb and deflect energy. Solid projectiles just go through." "That is the idea," Sarah confirmed. "Now, Commander, I need you to trust me. Pull your ships back. Get those civilians to safety. We will handle the Kreshna." Vex looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, a very human gesture that Sarah found oddly comforting. "Very well, Captain. But know this, if you are sacrificing yourselves for us, we will remember. We will tell our children's children of this day. Let us hope it does not come to sacrifice, Sarah said. Chen out! The screen went dark. Sarah turned to her crew, seeing the tension on their faces. They were far from home, alone, facing an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. But not one of them looked afraid. They looked determined. All hands, this is the captain, she said, her voice carrying through every deck of the ship. We did not come this far. We did not travel for 20 years through the dark just to watch people die when we could help them. Today we make first contact with alien civilization. Today we show them what humanity stands for. We stand for the idea that nobody should die alone in the dark. Not if we can do something about it. Her crew's response was immediate. Acknowledgements flooded in from every station, every deck, every corner of the Indomitable. Helm, take us forward, Sarah ordered. Right into their teeth. Let us see how tough these Krishna really are. The human battleship surged forward, weapons blazing, placing herself between the dying coalition fleet and the swarm that sought to destroy them. Behind her, the coalition ships began their retreat, protecting the civilians that represented their species' last hope. And for the first time in 3 years of hopeless war, the Krishna swarm encountered something they had never faced before. Resistance that hurt. The temporary ceasefire felt wrong. Commander Veksh kept expecting alarms to sound. Weapons fire to light up the darkness, death to come screaming out of the void. Instead, there was only the gentle hum of the shuttle's engines as it carried him toward the human battleship. Through the viewport, he could see the Indomitable properly for the first time. She was beautiful in a harsh, utilitarian way. No flowing lines or artistic touches, just brutal efficiency. Armor plates were welded over obvious damage. Scorch marks from weapons fire scarred her hull. This was a ship that had been fighting, surviving, enduring for a very long time. Approaching Docking Bay 7, his pilot announced. The humans have provided a guidance beacon. Proceed, Veksh said, trying to calm his racing hearts. First contact with an unknown species during a war aboard their military vessel. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this. The shuttle settled into the docking bay with barely a tremor. Veksh stood, straightened his torn uniform as best he could, and walked toward the airlock. His security officer, Kelm, followed close behind. The airlock cycled open, revealing the interior of the human ship. Veksh stepped through and stopped, his breath catching. It was not the technology that surprised him, though the human equipment looked fascinatingly different from anything he knew. It was the crew. They lined both sides of the corridor, standing at attention in their faded uniforms. Every single one of them looked exhausted. Tired eyes, worn faces, bodies that had pushed beyond normal limits and kept going anyway. But they stood straight. They held their positions with discipline and pride. At the front stood Captain Chen. She was smaller than Veksh had expected, barely reaching his chest in height. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her face showed the lines of someone who had spent years making difficult decisions. But her eyes were steady, warm even, as she stepped forward. Commander Veksh, she said, extending her hand in what his research told him was a human greeting gesture. Welcome aboard the Indomitable. I apologize for the informal circumstances of our meeting. Veksh carefully took her hand, mimicking the up and down motion he had observed in human cultural databases they had intercepted. Her grip was firm, confident. Captain Chen, I must thank you for your intervention. Without your ship, we would all be dead now. Let us walk and talk, Sarah said, gesturing down the corridor. We have much to discuss and not much time. The Krishna are regrouping. They will attack again soon. As they walked through the ship, Veksh could not stop looking around. The Indomitable was worn but maintained with obvious care. Crew members saluted as Captain Chen passed, but Veksh noticed something else. They looked at her with respect, yes, but also with trust. With loyalty. This was a crew that would follow their captain anywhere. They entered a conference room where several other humans waited. Captain Chen made introductions. This is Lieutenant Marcus Webb, my communications officer. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our chief medical officer and xenobiologist. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, and this is High Coordinator Mira, who insisted on being present via communication link. Veksh nodded to each of them, then saw Mira's face on a screen. The Selnath leader looked better now, her skin patterns showing more color. Hope had done that, he realized. Just the possibility of survival had brought her back from the edge of despair. Captain Chen, Veksh began, settling into a seat designed for humans, but adaptable enough for his frame. I must ask the question that my entire fleet is wondering. Who are you? Where did you come from? And why did you risk everything to help people you have never met? Sarah leaned back in her chair, looking tired. Those are fair questions. The humans are from a planet we call Earth. We are relatively young in terms of space exploration. We only developed faster than light travel about 70 years ago. Since then, we have been slowly expanding, carefully searching for others among the stars. You have been searching for alien life? Dr. Tanaka asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. That is fascinating. Most species we know assumed they were alone until someone else found them. We hoped we were not alone, Sarah continued, but we never found proof. No signals, no ruins, no evidence that anyone else was out here. Until 6 weeks ago when we detected your broadcasts. Vex felt his scales prickle with surprise. 6 weeks? But you are here now. How fast are your ships? Not fast enough, Sarah admitted. My ship is a deep space survey vessel. We have been on patrol for almost 20 years, mapping systems far from human space. When we detected your transmissions, we immediately reported back to Earth Command. But our government is months away by message lag. By the time we could receive official orders, you would all have been dead. The silence in the room was heavy. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. The captain made a decision. She brought us here without authorization. Earth Command does not know what we are doing. When they find out, there will be consequences. You came without permission? Mira's voice crackled through the speaker. You risked your career, your crew, your ship for strangers? Sarah met the screen's camera directly. We heard someone dying in the dark. What were we supposed to do? Sit and watch? Fill out paperwork while entire civilizations were erased? No, we came, we helped. I will deal with the consequences later. Vex felt something in his chest tighten. This human, this small female from a species he had never known existed, had risked everything for his people. Captain, I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything, Sarah replied. But I do need information. Tell me everything you know about the Krishna, how they fight, how they think, what makes them vulnerable. For the next hour, Vex shared everything the Coalition had learned about their enemy over 3 years of brutal war. The Krishna were a Gestalt consciousness, thousands of individual creatures linked into a single hive mind. They consumed other species, breaking down the biomass to grow more of themselves. They had destroyed 7 civilizations that the Coalition knew of, possibly more before that. They never retreat, Vex explained. They never surrender. They have no concept of mercy or negotiation. They exist only to consume and expand. Dr. Tanaka leaned forward. Have you tried any biological weapons? If they are organic, perhaps. We tried everything, Vex said, his voice heavy. Toxins, diseases, genetic weapons. Nothing worked. They adapt too quickly. Within hours, sometimes minutes, they evolve countermeasures. But they have never fought kinetic weapons before, Chief Rodriguez observed. And they have never fought humans. That is what concerns me, Vex admitted. He looked at Sarah directly. Captain, you hurt them today badly. But you are one ship. Alone. The Krishna have hundreds of vessels, and they grow more every day from the biomass of the worlds they have consumed. You cannot hold them off forever. No reinforcements are coming for you. I know, Sarah said quietly. The Indomitable is on her own. But we are not alone. We have you. She stood and activated a holographic display showing the Calric system. Here is what I propose. We make a stand together, Coalition ships and the Indomitable, fighting as one fleet. We use combined tactics. Your plasma weapons can weaken their organic armor. Our kinetic weapons can punch through. We cover each other's weaknesses. A joint operation, Mira said, her voice thoughtful. Coalition and human forces working together. It has never been done before. First time for everything, Marcus noted with a slight smile. Vex studied the tactical display, his military mind already seeing the possibilities. It could work. If we coordinate properly, if we can communicate quickly enough, if the Krishna do not overwhelm us with sheer numbers. A lot of ifs, Rodriguez said. Yes, Sarah agreed, but it is better than no chance at all. Dr. Tanaka pulled up medical data on her tablet. Commander, with your permission, I would like to examine some of your wounded. We may be able to help. Human medical technology might work on your biology. You would treat our injured? Vex asked, surprised. Why? Because they need help and we can provide it, Tanaka said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the galaxy. Is that not reason enough? Vex looked around the room at these strange aliens who had appeared from nowhere to fight for people they did not know. He thought about Sarah Chen, who had thrown away her career and possibly her freedom to answer a cry for help. He thought about the Indomitable's crew, worn and tired but still standing, still fighting. Captain Chen, he said slowly, when this is over, if we survive, I would like to introduce you to my people properly. I think they will want to know the humans who charged into the dark to save them. Sarah smiled, and it changed her whole face. Made her look younger, less burdened. Commander, I would be honored. But first we have a battle to win. Yes, Vex agreed, standing and clasping her hand again in that human gesture. Together, as he returned to his shuttle, Vex felt something he had not felt in 3 long years. Not just hope. Purpose. The knowledge that his people were no longer alone in their fight. The humans had come from the void, unexpected and unasked for, and they had given the coalition something precious beyond measure. A chance. The combined fleet assembled in formation, human and coalition vessels positioned according to the battle plan they had spent 18 hours perfecting. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with tired eyes. She had not slept since the planning session ended. None of them had. All coalition ships report ready, Captain, Marcus Webb announced. Commander Vex sends his regards and says his people are honored to fight alongside us. Tell him the honor is ours, Sarah replied. She switched her display to show the incoming Kreshna force. It was massive. Over 300 bioships ranging from small fighter equivalents to enormous dreadnoughts that massed more than entire space stations. The swarm had gathered everything it had for this assault. This would be the final battle one way or another. Captain Chief Rodriguez on the line, the communications officer said. Sarah tapped her console. Talk to me, Chief. Rodriguez's gruff voice came through clearly despite the interference from the ship's damaged systems. Captain, I have done everything I can to keep this old girl fighting. Shields are at 70% maximum capacity. Forward railguns 1 and 6 are offline for repairs. Point defense grid is operating at 85%. She will fight, but she is hurting. I know, Chief, Sarah said quietly. One more battle. That is all I'm asking from her, from all of you. Then one more battle is what you will get, Rodriguez replied. Rodriguez out. Sarah took a deep breath and opened a channel to the entire fleet. All vessels, this is Captain Chen. In a few minutes, the Kreshna will attack with everything they have. They think they can overwhelm us with numbers. They think we will break and run like so many others before us. They are wrong. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The coalition ships here have fought for 3 years against impossible odds. They have lost friends, family, whole worlds. But they never surrendered. They never stopped fighting. Today they stand with us, and we stand with them. Another pause. Sarah could feel the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. 312 human lives on her ship. Thousands of coalition lives in the other vessels, all depending on her decisions. We are the anvil, she continued. The Indomitable will hold position here, at the center of our formation. We will not move. We will not retreat. The Kreshna will break themselves against us, and when they do, our coalition brothers and sisters will be the hammer. Together we will show the Kreshna that this is where their expansion ends. This is where they learn that some people fight back hard enough to hurt. Incoming, the tactical officer shouted. Kreshna fleet is accelerating. They will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Sarah's hands gripped the arms of her command chair. All batteries prepare to fire. Point defense to automatic. Helm, hold your position no matter what hits us. We are the anvil. Anvils do not move. The Kreshna swarm came like a wave of organic death. The smaller bioships formed the leading edge. Thousands of fighter-sized creatures that moved with disturbing coordination. Behind them came the cruiser equivalents, then the dreadnoughts, massive and terrible. Range in 30 seconds, Marcus called out. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Firing range. All ships open fire, Sarah commanded. Space erupted with weapons discharge. The Indomitable's railguns sent projectiles screaming toward the Kreshna at relativistic speeds. Coalition ships added their plasma lances and energy beams. The first wave of Kreshna fighters simply disintegrated under the combined firepower. But there were so many more behind them. Brace for impact, someone shouted. The Kreshna fighter ships swarmed the Indomitable like angry insects. They fired bioweapons, acid projectiles that splashed against the battleship's armor. Most of the attacks were ineffective against the heavy plating. But there were so many of them. The point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down hundreds of the small bioships, but more kept coming. Shields at 50%, the tactical officer reported. Hull breaches on Deck 7 and 12. Damage control teams responding. Coalition Wing 3 reports heavy casualties, Marcus said, his voice tight. They are pulling back to regroup. Sarah watched 3 Coalition destroyers fall back from the main line, their hulls scarred and burning. But even as they retreated, they continued firing, covering each other's withdrawal. Good discipline. Good crews. Kreshna dreadnoughts moving into range, Tactical announced. Targeting the Indomitable directly. Here we go, Sarah muttered. All forward batteries target those dreadnoughts. Show them what happens when they get close to us. The Indomitable shuddered as her main railguns fired in sequence. The recoil was tremendous, but the results were worth it. The lead Kreshna dreadnought took 4 direct hits, its organic armor shattering. The massive bioship tumbled, leaking atmosphere and frozen biomass, but 2 more dreadnoughts moved in to replace it. The battle became a brutal, grinding affair. The Indomitable stood her ground, exactly as Sarah had promised, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed smaller vessels. Her armor held, but barely. Entire sections of the ship were venting atmosphere. Fires raged on multiple decks. The crew fought to keep systems online, to keep weapons firing, to keep their ship alive. Around them, Coalition ships darted and weaved, using their superior maneuverability to strike at the Kreshna flanks. Wing leader Sareth, a Selneth pilot Sarah had met briefly during planning, led a squadron of fighters on a daring run straight through a gap in the Kreshna formation. Her pilots paid a terrible price. Sarah watched 10 of the 15 fighters die in as many seconds, but they reached their target. A Kreshna command node, one of the hub creatures that coordinated sections of the swarm. Sareth's fighter fired everything she had into the command node at point-blank range. Then her ship exploded as Kreshna weapons tore it apart. But the command node died with her, and suddenly 100 Kreshna ships lost coordination. They scattered, confused, vulnerable. All ships target the disorganized section, Sarah ordered. Hit them now while they are confused! The combined fleet poured fire into the disrupted Kreshna formation. It was like shooting stunned fish in a barrel. Dozens of bioships died before the swarm could reorganize, but the cost was mounting. Sarah watched her fleet status board with growing dread. Of the 12 Coalition ships that had started the battle, only 7 remained combat effective. The others were dead or dying, drifting hulks that had given everything they had. Captain Commander Vex on the line, Marcus said. His flagship is heavily damaged. He is asking for assistance. Sarah checked the tactical display. The Defiant Dawn was surrounded, taking fire from all sides. Helm, come about 15 degrees. Bring us closer to Vex's position. We are going to provide cover. Captain, that will expose our damaged port side, the tactical officer warned. I know, Sarah said. Do it anyway. We are not leaving them to die alone. The Indomitable shifted position, placing herself between Vex's crippled flagship and the Kreshna ships trying to finish it off. Sarah's battleship took a tremendous beating for that decision. Shields collapsed completely. Armor plating buckled under bioweapon impacts. But the Defiant Dawn survived, limping away to a safer position. Captain, it was Dr. Tanaka's voice coming through from the medical bay. We have casualties on every deck. I am running out of supplies, out of space, out of... An explosion cut off her transmission. Sarah's heart clenched. Medical bay, respond. Static, then Tanaka's voice came back, shaken but determined. Still here, Captain. But we lost the west wing of the medical bay. I am moving patients to auxiliary facilities. Do what you can, Doctor, Sarah said, forcing her voice to remain calm. We are almost through this. She hoped that was true. The tactical display showed the Kreshna fleet was still enormous, still deadly. But they had lost hundreds of ships. They were being hurt in ways they had never experienced before. Then something changed. Captain, we are detecting unusual signals from the Kreshna flagship, Marcus reported. It looks like communications traffic. Internal communications, Sarah leaned forward. Are they coordinating a new attack? Negative, Marcus said slowly, studying his displays. Captain, I think they are arguing with themselves. The hive mind is fragmenting. Lieutenant Webb at the cyber warfare station looked up suddenly. Captain, I found something. The Kreshna fleet network, it has a vulnerability. The way they communicate between ships, it uses a biological quantum entanglement system. Very sophisticated, but if we could disrupt the primary node, their flagship, Sarah finished. If we kill their command ship, the whole swarm might lose coordination. For a time at least, Webb confirmed. Maybe long enough to turn the tide. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Krishna flagship was enormous, heavily protected, surrounded by defensive ships. Getting close enough to kill it would require running a gauntlet that would likely destroy any ship that tried. She made her decision in seconds. All remaining ships. Concentrate fire on the Krishna flagship, she ordered. Everything we have left. We are going to cut the head off this swarm. The combined fleet, battered and bleeding but unbroken, turned as one toward the Krishna command vessel. They fired with desperate fury. Every weapon, every last bit of ammunition and energy they could muster. The Indomitable led the charge, her damaged hull screaming through space. 3 weeks had passed since the battle, and Commander Veksh still found himself looking up at the stars differently. They seemed less empty now, less cold. Somewhere out there beyond the known systems was a species called humanity, and humanity had shown his people something he would never forget. He stood in the converted cargo bay of a coalition station, watching humans and coalition workers labor side by side. They were repairing the Indomitable, patching her wounds, restoring systems that had been damaged in the desperate battle. The human battleship floated outside, held in place by magnetic clamps, her scarred hull reflecting the system's sun. She had earned every scar. The welds on Section 12 are holding well, a Therian engineer reported, reviewing his tablet. These human metallurgy techniques are fascinating. Their approach to ship construction is so different from ours. Veksh nodded absently, his attention on the main display showing the arrival of new ships, human ships, a full diplomatic convoy that had finally reached the Kelric system. Earth Command had sent ambassadors, scientists, reporters, all eager to document this first contact between their species and the coalition. They were several months too late. First contact had already happened. It had happened with weapons fire and shared blood and desperate courage. Commander Veksh, a familiar voice said behind him. He turned to find Captain Sarah Chen approaching. She looked different now, well-rested, her uniform repaired, her face relaxed in a way it had not been during the battle, but her eyes still carried that weight, that burden of command and difficult choices. Captain Chen, Veksh greeted her warmly. I heard the diplomatic ships have arrived. You will finally get to go home. Sarah smiled, but it did not quite reach her eyes. Yes, I am being ordered back to Earth for debriefing, and probably a court-martial for unauthorized intervention in an alien conflict. That is outrageous, Veksh said, his scales rippling with agitation. You saved us. You risked everything for people you had never met. How can your government punish you for that? Military discipline, Sarah said with a shrug. I broke orders. I took my ship into a war zone without authorization. There have to be consequences or the chain of command means nothing. I understand that. I knew the price when I made the choice, and you made it anyway, Veksh said quietly. That is what makes you remarkable. Before Sarah could respond, High Coordinator Mira entered the bay, flanked by representatives from all the coalition species. The Selneth leader looked radiant now, her skin patterns bright and complex with joy and hope. Behind her came dozens of others, including the families of crew members who had died in the battle. Captain Sarah Chen, Mira announced formally, her voice carrying through the bay. On behalf of the Therian Selneth Coalition and all the peoples we represent, we have come to honor you and your crew. Sarah stood straighter, uncomfortable with the attention. Veksh had noticed this about humans. They seemed embarrassed by gratitude and praise, as if helping others was just what anyone would do. Mira continued. 3 weeks ago, we were dying. Our worlds were ash. Our fleets were destroyed. We sent one final message into the void, expecting no answer because we believed we were alone. But we were wrong. We were not alone. You heard us, Captain. You came, you fought beside us. You bled for us. The coordinator held up a blade, long and elegantly curved, made from Therian war steel that held an edge for centuries. It was an honor blade, given only to warriors who had proven themselves in the most desperate battles. We declare you Starkin, Mira said, her voice thick with emotion. The highest honor our peoples can bestow. You are no longer strangers from the void. You are family. Your people are our people. Your struggles are our struggles. From this day until the stars grow cold, the Coalition stands with humanity. She approached Sarah and offered the blade. This is for you, Captain. And this Mira produced a data crystal. This contains testimony from every survivor of the battle. Every ship captain, every crew member, every civilian you saved. They all want your Earth Command to know what you did here, what you sacrificed, what you mean to us. Sarah took the blade and the crystal, her hands trembling slightly. Coordinator, I do not know what to say. My crew and I, we only did what was right, what was necessary. Exactly, Vex said, stepping forward. That is why you were Starkin. Because when you saw people dying in the dark, you did not calculate the political consequences. You did not wait for permission. You did not count the cost to yourselves. You simply acted. You helped. That is the definition of honor. Sarah looked around the bay at all the faces watching her. Coalition citizens, human crew members, workers and warriors and ordinary people who had survived because of choices she made. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. I am not a hero. I am just someone who could not stand by and do nothing. And my crew, they are the real heroes. They voted to support this mission knowing it could end their careers. Knowing we might not survive, they chose to help you anyway. Then they are all Starkin, Mira declared. Every member of your crew. And when they return to Earth, they carry with them the gratitude of 3 civilizations and billions of lives. A human voice interrupted from the bay's communication system. Captain Chen, this is Ambassador Okafor from the diplomatic vessel Harmony. I have been ordered to take custody of you and your crew for transport back to Earth. Please prepare for transfer within the hour. Sarah's expression tightened, but she tapped her communicator. Acknowledged, Ambassador. We will be ready. She looked at Vex and Mira. I am sorry. I have to go. Not yet, Vex said. He pulled something from his belt. It was his own blade, the weapon he had carried through 3 years of war. The coordinator gave you the formal honor. This is my personal one. You charged into the dark for people you did not know. You put your ship between us and death. That kind of courage deserves to be remembered. Sarah took the blade, and this time her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Thank you, Commander. For everything. For fighting beside us. For trusting us. For showing my people that there are good souls out here among the stars. Thank you, Captain, Vex replied. For showing us we are not alone. The transfer to the diplomatic ship happened quickly. Sarah and her crew were formally escorted to the Harmony, a sleek vessel designed for comfort and appearances rather than combat. Ambassador Okafor was a tall man with graying hair and a politician's smile. He clearly did not approve of what Sarah had done. Captain Chen, he said as she boarded, you have created quite the diplomatic situation. First contact with an alien civilization, conducted through military action without proper authorization or protocols. Earth Command is very displeased. I imagine they are, Sarah said calmly. But those people out there are alive because we intervened. I will accept the consequences of that. You may face more than just a reprimand, Okafor warned. Court-martial, imprisonment, discharge from service. Your career is over. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But those people have a future now. That seems like a fair trade. 6 months later, the formal treaty ceremony took place on a neutral station constructed specifically for this purpose. Humans and coalition representatives gathered in an enormous hall, with translators and cameras and all the formal trappings of diplomacy. Ambassador Okafor read from a prepared statement about cooperation, mutual defense, cultural exchange, and all the proper diplomatic language. It was professional, appropriate, and completely missed the point. When it was Commander Vex's turn to speak, he set aside his prepared remarks. 6 months ago we were dying, he said simply. We had given up hope. We thought we would die alone in the dark, forgotten by a universe that did not care. Then came the indomitable. 1 ship, 1 crew, 312 humans who decided that our lives mattered, who decided that standing by while others suffered was not acceptable. He looked directly at Sarah Chen, who sat in the audience wearing her dress uniform. The court-martial had happened, but the testimony from coalition survivors had changed everything. She had been officially reprimanded but also awarded the Earth Medal of Valor. Her crew had been cleared of all charges. Today we sign a treaty of alliance, Vex continued. But the real alliance was forged in the fires of battle, in shared sacrifice in the moment Captain Chen ordered her ship to shield our civilians. That is the bond between our peoples, not words on a document. Action, courage, the willingness to fight for what is right even when it costs you everything. The ceremony concluded with both sides signing the treaty. Then, in a moment that would be remembered for generations, High Coordinator Mira approached the human delegation and offered them a coalition military banner, a flag stained with the colors of all their member species. This flew on my flagship during the battle, she explained. It was damaged, burned, nearly destroyed, but it survived. Just like we did. I want Earth to have it as a reminder. You saved us when no help was expected. You appeared from the void when we needed you most. That is what it means to be Starkin. That is what it means to be family. Later, in a quieter moment, Sarah stood with Vex looking out at the stars through the station's observation deck. What will you do now, Captain? Vex asked. Return to duty, Sarah said. The Indomitable is being fully repaired and upgraded.